Hi folks, Dustin Furlow here. Hope you're safe and well. Thanks for stopping by. I'm going to be starting this new series called My Favorite Luthiers, episode 1, as you can probably tell by now. It's something I've been wanting to do for a while. Been brainstorming on it and waiting on a certain somebody to arrive to kick it off. This is something I'd like to do regularly or maybe semi-regularly for the YouTube channel. Just sort of sharing experiences of my favorite guitar makers from around the world, my favorite guitars from them, maybe some that I've borrowed from a friend, some that I've commissioned myself, some that the Luthiers themselves have sent me to try out and show you guys. Yeah, I'm pretty well aware at this point now that a lot of new fans in the past few years have been people directly exposed to my music from Cedar Rock Studio Guitar Gallery's demos, of which there's a plethora now. It's a really great guitar gallery that opened in Indiana a few years back, and probably done over 100 demos for them now, different luthiers from around the world. And the cool thing is I've played sometimes more than 2, maybe even 5 guitars from one luthier and seen the consistencies, or even seen maybe that they made a guitar that was completely different than another one based on a client's needs, and just sort of sharing experiences with that sort of thing. I mean, I get a lot of emails and messages from people from Cedar Rock that I think maybe assume I'm the sales guy, which I'm not. I just show up and play the guitars and talk about them like I'm doing here. But, you know, they will have questions about, you know, nut width, scale length, body shapes, body depths, anything you can think of concerning an acoustic guitar. You know, these people are very passionate about what can potentially make a life-changing, you know, artistry shaping guitar. You know, like, I'm very well aware at this point that a really good guitar can take your craft into the stratosphere if it's a good match for you. So I think that it's a really good thing to fixate on to a certain degree. So we're going to just talk about that, have some fun. I'm going to talk about some of my favorite builders from around the world, and we're just going to have a good time. So episode 1 is Taran Guitars from Scotland, and it's comprised of Rory Dowling, Zachy Morris, and Karlijn Harrington. So Rory does the top voicing, the neck carves, finishing, body bindings, really like the finer woodworking things, and, you know, of course the top and the back sides bending and all that stuff. Zachy does a majority of what Rory also does. And then Karlijn is he's the newest member. He's mostly in charge of the fretwork, the guitar setup. He's really like the guitar tech that handles sort of the finer details as well as Rory. The setup on this was just mind-bogglingly good. I mean, I really don't hesitate to say that. It is like the best setup I've ever experienced on a guitar. So kudos to them. The intonation's really great. It's like a breath of fresh air. It's really fantastic to just get a guitar straight from a shop and it be perfect. I mean, it's just awesome. So kudos there. It's a 3-man operation, and Gemma, Rory's lovely wife, is sort of in charge of communications, build, facilitating, because the boys have to be at work, you know. So really great bunch of people, really sweet, just a fantastic experience. I actually went to Scotland about a month ago to pick this up in person, see the shop, and just hang out and take some landscape photography, which I've dreamed of doing for so long. Really great experience all in all. And this guitar just completely blew my mind, as expected. I've played 4 Taran guitars now at this point, and all of them have just left me completely baffled. Now, if you are a fan of Taran guitars, then you know what I'm holding is what they call a Chigra Big. And this is African Blackwood. You're probably not going to see too much detail, but I'm going to enlarge some photos. African Blackwood for the back and sides, and lovely Italian spruce for the soundboard. I've had several guitars built for me with this tonewood combo, and it's just fantastic. It's a great combo. Some of my favorite guitars that I've ever played, period, are with this same combo. So it's just something that I like. It's something that works for me, might not work for you, but in general, I think it's a very rich sound. I think Zachy also told me it's his favorite tonewood combo, because of course I had to ask the guys at the shop, like, okay, what's your favorite? What are you digging? You know, what are you into? So I thought that was pretty cool that you know, it's a very rich, fundamentally big sounding tone wood combo. I mean, it's at once warm and sweet with complexity, and also it'll move a ton of air if you really want it to. I mean, it's a very authoritative tone wood combo in most cases, and it's no exception with this Taran. I mean, all the Tarans I've played have had the thing that initially really made me get into the sound. Well, for one, it was very unique. It was right off the back, I'd never heard anything like it. For two, the fundamentals and overtones were perfectly balanced, so I could play something fast and I could play something slow, and I'd be equally satisfied. I think that personally, in my experiences, there is such a thing, or there is too much of a good thing sometimes. Having a bit too much overtones can sort of, get a little busy and a little hectic. What's important to me in a guitar usually is how's it going to sound in front of microphones, how's it going to sound live, and am I going to be able to hear the middle, where the chord voicings are or where alternative melody frequency ranges are going to be. So I don't tend to like really bassy guitars, even though this is a kind of a bassy tone wood combo most cases. Don't really like overly bassy guitars myself. And again, I don't like overly overtone heavy guitars. So Rory knew this. I told him that over the phone. We worked out over the course of a few months what we wanted to do for this guitar, and it's perfect. I mean, perfect. It really is. It's just like a finely tuned sword. Like it's, I don't know how, there's so many ways I could describe it, but it's a badass guitar, but it's also polite. It has a lot of sweetness, a lot of balance, but it can really just sort of, can really make the room echo, So this guitar was braced with a light to medium touch in mind. So the internal bracing is like a mixture of Sitka and Adirondack braces and animal protein glue throughout. Rory has a mixture of different bracing patterns that he uses for, he makes guitars for players that are in folk bands, they're self-accompanists, people that have maybe a more stout right-hand attack, or they use a plectrum. So for me, I think it was probably a wise decision to go for something that is a bit more active, where the trebles kind of have this nice bloom to them to complement the melodies where, trebles usually are. So I haven't seen a ton of sound clips of any cutaway Tigger-Begs. I've heard quite a few Tigger-Beg recordings from Michael Watts, for instance, who did a really great series of videos for Taran Guitars. Definitely recommend checking that out. And of course, Taran's YouTube channel. I'll put a little link up here for that. Really good sound clips available of that sort of thing. But the difference between this and his other most popular model, which I think is his sort of claim, I don't want to say claim to fame, because I mean, it would be more like the thing that put Rory on the map, I think I should say, is the Chigger Moore, which is a 12 fret, generally it's a 12 fret cutaway, sort of like an enlarged tripolo that him and Martin Simpson designed together. That was the first Taran that I played at Cedar Rock, and it was Adirondack and African Blackwood. And I've since played a clone of it that was made also for Cedar Rock, and it was just, of course it was just as good. Very consistently made, consistent overtone, fundamental balance. Just a monstrous guitar. But the difference between that guitar and this one is the 12 fret body sort of gives this omnidirectional bass response and this projection. So you could be like over here listening to somebody play it, and it's almost like a classical, like you feel that that low warmth from across the room. Whereas this one's like a big OM. It just kind of like puts all the sound directly in front like a cannon. I like that personally. There's also a sound port on this guitar, which is something I've come to prefer on a lot of my guitars just for personal enjoyment, and I think that they just sound a bit more lively, even in front. That's been my observation. If I cover it, it sounds a bit more focused, whereas if I take a hand off it, the guitar itself sounds more alive in some way. That's just my ears. Your mileage may vary, as with many things in the guitar world. There's so much. I could ramble for so long, and I'm going to have to take care not to ramble too much on this series, but in short, this guitar is everything that I needed from a commissioned build. He also did this Wenge neck, which in Roy's words sort of focused sound And so far, I've heard nothing to dissuade that notion. It's my first guitar with an alternative neck wood. I did have a walnut-necked Beneteau at one point, and that behaved probably just like a mahogany neck would, to be honest. I mean, I don't have an ear for neck wood tone. I don't think anybody probably does that fine, but I think it just looks really badass too. It's really great. And Rory does these wonderful hot sand faded Scottish burr elm appointments, as you can see here on the headstock, the rosette, and the Taran bevel, which is sort of his blend of the Alaskan and Ryan style. I mean, the woodworking is just impeccable. I mean, my dad was a really great woodworker, is a really great woodworker, and you know, so I sort of grew up like looking at all the finer details in like his chessboards and his furniture and cabinet making and whatever he was making at the time. And this stuff, just looking at these guitars, just blows my mind. I mean, it is as good as it possibly gets. So that's what I'll leave there. You know, I think some closing statements about the guitar in Taran as a whole, the shop. You know, I think that guitar making luthiery, you know, luthiers who are pursuing the craft of constantly progressing and becoming better craftsmen, you know, it's like any other art. It's like painting, it's like writing a song, it's like any other thing. I think that when you're really passionate about something, your personality, your characteristics, you will come out in that. And I think that, you know, after meeting Rory and getting to see the person that he was, you know, he's very pragmatic. He's very sweet, you know, very kind-hearted person. I mean, we had whiskey by the fire. You know, he let me stay at his house a couple of nights. Very hospitable, you know, very warm-hearted guy, you know, and at the same time, he is the last person that I would ever want to mess with if I didn't know him at a bar. You know, he's a very rugged dude, you know, so it's like who he is as a person, I feel like that comes into his guitars. You know, you have these very sweet, complex, articulate, well-made instruments, and it's just such a articulate sound. But that's not the one-trick pony. It's still got, you know, it's still got balls and it's got power to it. It's a very authoritative sound. I'll let you listen to the clips. I'm not going to go on too much about the sound, but Tarans have a very unique thing going on, I think. They're in like the 5% of the higher-end guitars. They're in that caliber, in my opinion. So very grateful to have won the Taran Young Player Bursary this past year. It's something that Taran does for players that are younger than 30 years old. They give them the opportunity to get a build slot and not have to wait 4 or 5 years for a guitar. And so I feel very fortunate that I was selected for that. So thank you again for that. That was definitely the highlight of 2021. So that's probably enough jabbering for now. We'll play it safe for this first episode. If there's any questions or anything you guys would like to add to the conversation, feel free to leave some comments. I'll try and be as responsive as possible. But we're going to get to some really nice sound clips from Matt Thomas and the lovely Karlijn Langendijk. This is my favorite part of putting all this together, was listening to two of the best guitarists I've ever had the pleasure of knowing playing this guitar, being on the other side of the sound hole. It was really quite remarkable. So I hope you enjoy. And till next time, be safe, be well, keep picking. Again, feel free to leave any comments or questions or anything. And I'll see you on the next one. We're going to have Rebecca Erlecker for our next episode, and Mark Beneteau, one of my other very favorite luthiers of all time. We'll probably get one from Mark Hatcher and Larrivee Guitars, of course. So stick around. I hope you enjoy it. And if there's any thoughts, again, feel free to leave them down there and let's get a conversation going. So till next time, guys. See ya.